DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse, is the one-stop shop for all your footwear needs. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW has what you need, but more importantly, they have what you didn't even know you wanted. You never know what you'll find at DSW. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or DSW.com.
From Estero, Florida, this is a One Extraordinary Marriage show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. Creators of the 6 Pillars of Intimacy, I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're talking about why Valentine's Day brings up so many emotions in marriage and how couples can move beyond pressure, disappointment, and comparison toward meaningful connection.
And there's an anonymous quote that says, "Romance isn't about getting it right for one day. It's about choosing each other in small ways over time." And I would just add to that, but there can be a lot of pressure around one day. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. But first, we start every show, every episode with a hug. And hug is really an opportunity for us to celebrate you, for us to share what you're doing and how you're being intentional in your marriage, because I think you all derive, and we do too, so much from hearing what others do. And this hug comes from a post that was in the One Family private Facebook group that says, "Sending hugs. I'm not a New Year's resolution guy, but after listening to your recent podcast on your 2025 countdown from 6, my wife and I did ours, and wow, what an impact in just a few short months. She first introduced me to the One Extraordinary Marriage podcast in October of 2025. We had just celebrated our 20th anniversary, and she had been listening to it for a while and asked if I wanted to listen to with her because she wanted to ensure that our next 20 years would be stronger than the first 20. We were hiking up a mountain when she told me, and I practically fell off the mountain with joy that my wife wants to spend more time with me and make our marriage stronger. So my 2026 goal is to be more available to my wife and to work on the 6 pillars of intimacy together. Thank you, Tony and Elisa, for what you do."
I love it. And hey, I can totally relate when it comes to these New Year's resolutions or like setting goals for the year. That's totally me. And I think that's why that countdown to connection was such a powerful time for Elisa and I to share. That's the name of the episode, by the way. It's episode 892, Countdown to Connection. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. It isn't a New Year type of a thing. You can pick this up any time of year. Look at your 6 pillars of intimacy. Count down where you are right now, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put an action plan in place and start making some changes so you can create your extraordinary marriage.
And we're just honored that the two of you want your next 20 years to be stronger than the first 20, and that we get to be a small part of that. As Tony said at the top of this episode, we're talking about Valentine's Day. And, some of you might be like, "But Elisa, Tony, this is like coming out at the end of January. Where are we talking about this now?" Because Valentine's Day is about 2 weeks away. And one of the things, our heart here at One Extraordinary Marriage is always to impact one marriage. And if I can take that one step further as the marriage coach and say, and we want to set you up for success. We want to bring things to your attention ahead of time so that you can do things maybe differently or with more intentionality than you've done it in the past. And that's really why we would be talking about Valentine's Day 2 weeks before and not the week of Valentine's Day where you're like scrambling. And, a big part of this episode is going to be, as we so often do, going to be shaped by what your peers have said about what Valentine's Day looks like to them, about what they want, about what would be meaningful. And I think it's important that you start hearing these words as we're talking about this topic that can be sensitive, and just start going, what would this look like in my own marriage?
Yeah, and Elisa and I, obviously the podcast has now celebrated its 16th birthday.
Yes.
So we have shared our journey around Valentine's Day, and we're going to share a little bit about that. I'd like for us to intercede and interject what we have done over the years. But we have numerous episodes around Valentine's Day, what it's meant to us, what it's meant to others. But I think this one is really special just from listening to you, the one family. I think it really hit home for me that the reason we need to do this earlier is not so you have to go buy something. That's not what it's about. What it's really about is that you really get close and connected to your spouse, because that is what true intimacy is. And so bringing it up now instead of the day or two before, you have some time to think this through and what it could look like for you to discuss, have that conversation with your spouse.
And I think what y'all are going to hear in this particular episode is that it really isn't about the spending of money. It's about the giving of self and the giving of time.
Okay.
And that's going to be, I think, just as I was starting to create this episode and see the answers that came in, that was a theme. And so I want to seed that here at the top of this episode, because I think if you start to change the lens, like, oh, I've got to do more, I've got to get more, to how can I change how I show up? How do I show up? That really starts to shift what you're capable of. Because we recently, put a post up on Instagram polls. That's where we always do, or Instagram stories. That's where we always do, ask questions. And I asked the question, like, how does Valentine's Day feel in your marriage? Just give me one word to describe it. And here are some of the words that we got: love, pressure, disappointment, normal, scary, ambivalent, excitement, frustration, neglect. That's a pretty wide range.
And I would say that's like a moment in time.
Sure.
So a year from now, 5 years from now, someone who feels frustrated or neglected could feel loved.
Absolutely.
That's the trajectory. Those are the things that end up happening when we have these conversations, so we don't always feel that way, right? And so you could be in any of those places and yet know you don't always have to sit there all the time.
This isn't a permanent declaration on the state of your marriage.
Correct.
It's a snapshot that gives you insights and starts to say, okay, well, what does this mean? Because I think when you start to hear words like this, it highlights the fact that when people associate one day with their marriage, it's a bit of a mirror into how the couple or how your spouse sees the marriage, how connected or disconnected the two of you are right now. What maybe there are expectations or needs that haven't been met. And so these words start to come up as somebody reflects on that day. And when you start to see some of these words that maybe feel a little more emotionally heavy, and you start digging down to it, and some of the other expressions that came through were, will I feel chosen? Do I matter? Will my spouse notice me on that day? And, it becomes, and I want to say, Valentine's Day, I know, is one day out of 365 days in a calendar year. But there are a lot of people that really look to that day to be the representation of how my spouse, how does my spouse feel about me? And that's a really important thing to know in your marriage. And I know for some of you, you're like, Elisa, it's February 14th. Like, whatever.
It's normal. It's just
somebody said normal.
Right, normal. It's just another day. Been there, done that.
But when your spouse, or you, depending on who's listening to this, has these feelings towards Valentine's Day, doing an episode like this is so important, because it can almost become a test. Valentine's Day can be this like, oh, well, what's going to happen? What does this start to look like? How's this going to, you just said, been there, done that with us. What are your thoughts on Valentine's Day?
Well, there was definitely a time period where, for myself, and this is me, I don't know how you felt around it, but I felt like it was just a Hallmark holiday. And so for me, I took on this badge of honor of like, well, it's just a Hallmark holiday. Who cares? And it was really more about myself than about you. I think in those years when I was talking about that, even here on the One Extraordinary Marriage show, I think it was more like me just pumping up my chest, going like, "Oh, look at me! Look how awesome I am! I'm sticking it to Hallmark or whoever came up with this holiday, right?" But never, and I will say this to my own detriment, never inquired to you, Elisa, and said, "What does that mean to you?" I declared it. I said, "This is what it is," and I was saying, "This is how it's going to be. So you're going to just have to deal with it, honey." Mm-hmm. And I look back now, and I'm like, that's pretty foolish of me. That's really stupid of me to just sort of sit on my own little pedestal and think that I'm so righteous and forget about how it may or what that day may represent to you. And especially during those earlier years when we did have young kids. We were stretched thin in many ways. And so I look back and I'm like, probably would have been helpful to find out, what does that day represent to you? What are the expectations you may have? Because I would suspect, and I would love for you to share, where were you like when I did that?
Hearing you say that, like, I remember those declarations. Like, it's just a Hallmark holiday, and I even think back to like our very first Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
You were in Colorado. I was in Indiana, and you sent me 3 red roses.
Mm-hmm. You thought I was going to send you a ring. Or you
thought I thought you were going to show up.
You thought I was going to show up and give you an engagement ring.
I was secretly hoping. I'm not going to lie. We've talked about it many times. I was totally hoping.
No, I know you were.
But you still sent me those roses. And, learned later and probably knew it at the time that like that was what you could afford. Right? Sending roses on Valentine's Day is not.
I don't even know if I could afford those 3 roses and having them shipped.
Yeah.
I think I was on the edge even sending those, but I knew that cherishing you then was very important to us moving forward in the relationship, to us getting eventually engaged with one another and getting married.
Yeah.
And that's where I dropped the ball after we got married.
Well, and I think 2 things happened after. I think one, you had just made this and repeated it for many years, this strong declaration. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? Hallmark holiday. So be it. We're not doing this. And we had a few years where we would like celebrate the day before, just because from a financial standpoint, we were like,
or just to get a reservations at a restaurant or something.
Between getting a reservation and having money or not having money. And so we did that. But then I think I bought into it. Like I kind of accepted that, well, if Tony doesn't want to celebrate Valentine's Day, and, when the kids came around, we had, all the kids parties and we were doing a little Valentine's Day and they'd say, "Happy Valentine's Day, Mommy." And so that just kind of became a thing. And I think that really highlights the fact that, we can get into these routines and these rhythms in a marriage, and we often don't stop and take a look and go, is this working for us? Right? Is this where we want to be? And I'm not like, me, I'm not all about like the big gifts and you've got to lavish me with gifts. And yet I think as we've gotten older, having those little expressions of, I see you, I appreciate you, a card. You're very good with just like the random card every once in a while. Why are you smirking?
No. I was like, your gift is me, baby doll.
And this is why Hallmark holidays just don't even matter to Tony, because clearly I've got the only gift I could possibly need, and that's just where the conversation stops.
It doesn't stop. It's an expectation, I think, of many on the guy side or the high desire spouse side who would like to be sexually intimate, that day represents that.
Which is the whole thing.
Which if you go back to these words, pressure. Am I going to be pressured to be sexually intimate? Because it's not just did I get a gift or not, but I think we need to encompass that, because a lot of times it is focused on a gift or an expression or recreational intimacy and activity, fun, time together. And yet a lot of times the sexual intimacy part of it gets glossed over. And I think that's where that pressure, maybe the disappointment comes in. Scared, like we haven't had sex in a long time. And now it's Valentine's Day and my husband and my wife expects it. And like, I don't want to, we haven't, what does that look like?
Which is, just ironic in our marriage, because I remember in the early days when we were struggling with our sexual intimacy, and even as we were, doing the 60-day sex challenge and coming out of that and going into the next, I'm like, I remember telling people, I'm like, I can count on one hand on the days that Tony's absolutely going to get sex throughout the course of a year. And Valentine's Day was one of those days where I'm like, yeah, it's like Valentine's Day, Father's Day, his birthday, our anniversary. Like there, I guess it was 4 days. But I think that highlights a big thing, right? Because when you start getting not just what does Valentine's Day mean to you, but what would be something that you hope for on Valentine's Day? And I asked this question. We got responses like, spend quality time with me. Mm-hmm. Acknowledge that I exist and have value. Mm-hmm. Tell me I'm loved, valued, adored, or wanted. Plan something totally romantic. Initiate sex. Spend the whole day with me. Give me positive attention. And you know, all of these things, like there's no dollar amount on those. Nobody said, buy me a car or fly me to Europe. All of these things are things that they're totally doable. They're not extravagant demands. There's this underlying sense of your spouse wants to be seen, or maybe it's you want to be seen.
Valued came up a number of times. So I looked up the definition because that is a word that I think can get a little misconstrued of like, what does that mean? So the definition, considered to be important or beneficial, cherished. Mm-hmm. And I think we just need to, I think it's that first part. Our spouse wants us to know that they are important to us. Mm-hmm. And that's something that doesn't happen just on one day a year either. Mm-hmm. I think each of us want to be valued by our spouse. We want to feel important to them. Mm-hmm. And so I think about that word and how can you make your spouse feel important?
Yeah, it's so important. Because when that starts to be missed, lots of things can unravel in a marriage. And again, Valentine's Day is not the only day of the year, but it could be an opportunity to really jumpstart this connection between the two of you, to really build intimacy. And we want to talk about what you can do and how you can do that after this break.
This is a Monday.com ad. The same Monday.com designed for every team. The same Monday.com with built-in AI, scaling your work from day one. The same Monday.com with an easy and intuitive setup. Go to Monday.com and try it for free.
This podcast is supported by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife, feeling dismissed, unheard, or just plain tired of the old healthcare system? You're not alone. In fact, even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause issues are left entirely untreated. But it's time for a change. It's time for MIDI. MIDI's not just a healthcare provider. It's a women's telehealth clinic founded and supported by world-class leaders in women's health. Their clinicians provide one-on-one, face-to-face consultations where they truly listen to your unique needs. They offer a full range of holistic, data-driven solutions that isn't one-size-fits-all care. This is care uniquely tailored for you. At MIDI, you will find that their mission is clear: to help all women thrive in midlife, giving them access to the healthcare they deserve. Because they believe midlife isn't the middle at all. It is the beginning of your second act. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized, insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.
We're back. And really considering this idea of Valentine's Day, shifting from being a test, like, do I matter? Will I be seen? And shifting it into an invitation, right? An invitation to connect, to talk, to actually express those expectations, to move towards one another, making this decision, just like that couple in the hug where, she invited him to listen to the podcast. They are expressing and moving towards having the next 20 years be stronger than the last one. What if this Valentine's Day was that first step, that baby step, like I often talk about in 6 Pillars of Intimacy, towards the connection, towards the marriage that the two of you want to have, but it starts just couched around this conversation around Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. And you may start just like I did, like Tony and I did, with this place of, asking, how does Valentine's Day feel to you? Like, what's the word that comes to mind? When Valentine's Day comes around, I usually feel, and let your spouse fill in the blank. I want to be real cautious here. This is not to become an argument or justification or defending of yourself. This is just an opportunity to learn. What does your spouse think about when Valentine's Day comes up? Do they think it's a Hallmark holiday? Tell me more about that.
Well, a lot of this goes back to our communication reset program. We have the couple method in there. And L stands for listen to understand. And so many a times when we are talking about emotional intimacy, a lot of times it's, I'm just going to talk. And I am even learning more and more as I grow older and with Elisa and other relationships, listen to understand. I don't have to have a stance on everything. I felt like I had that like a couple of years ago, even last year. I felt like every time somebody said something, I had to have a rebuttal to them. Like, I need to stand up for this. Like, our society wants us to be like, let's get out there and let's make sure everybody knows what I got to say. Nobody cares. And I think sometimes our spouse just wants us to listen, to understand them and just go, I hear you. And I think sometimes every episode that Elisa and I do, I get this opportunity to shut up. Because I've heard from many of you many years ago when I used to just talk over Elisa. And I learned. It's a skill. I just shut up and I listen to her. And I'm catching pieces of where Elisa is. Because what she's sharing behind the microphone are things that she does desire. That there are expectations. And I get a glimpse to just sit here and go, oh, okay, like I hear that. And maybe that's what you need to do for your spouse. Is just, I'm sorry to say it, you just need to shut up.
I was shut up.
Not you. I love when you talk.
Well, most of the time. Most of the time. Every once in a while.
There are times that I'm like, Elisa, enough. Yes, I hear you.
So you can start with that question. You know what? When Valentine's Day comes around, how do you usually feel? And listen. And then follow it up. I hear you, like Tony said. In this season, what would make you feel most loved? Like, you notice in this episode, we have not told you to go buy flowers or to plan a romantic date or to, sit under the stars or do any of these types of things. It's getting into this place where you ask a question. Maybe your spouse is somebody that wants you to spend an afternoon with them. Or maybe you're married to the person who's like, oh my gosh, like when you leave a card in the bathroom or in my travel bag, it lights me up. Or maybe you're married to the person that says, oh my goodness, like one fabulous makeout session would like rock my world. There's a reason why in this episode, very specifically, we are not telling you what the prescribed action is, because we want you to stop guessing, to stop listening to somebody else, and to ask your spouse. Just ask him right now, what can you do today? Not what were all the mistakes of last year, but today. And then step into a place where you take action, right? Plan the meaningful moment. Plan the action. Take what they've said, process it, and then do something about it. Like, extraordinary marriages are not necessarily all that complicated. We have to hear, we have to process, and we have to do. And that simple formula can create a tremendous amount of connection. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, let me tell you guys. I mean, perfection, I say this to a lot of my clients. We're not chasing perfection, we're chasing progress.
That's a good one.
Because when you chase progress, you're always moving towards the goal. If you chase perfection, you fail. And failure often sets people up to stop doing anything. But if you're chasing progress, can I be 1% better today? Can I be 2% better tomorrow? Can I go back? Like, do I maybe take a step back, but then I go 3%? Like, you can go after progress harder than you can go after perfection. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to maybe this Valentine's Day, or even just what your connection is going to look like this year, please chase progress. Don't try and be perfect. Be perfect for your spouse.
As you get ready and you set yourselves up for this next Valentine's, think about these. What can you do? One of the things that we say in the 6 pillars of intimacy is, what can I do? And it's, what can you do for more than roses and romance? What does that look like for the two of you? And I got to tell you, I learned some things today. Hopefully you did. But more importantly, are you willing to be intentional and take some action to learn more about your spouse and hear what they got to say? Because as Elisa alluded to, Valentine's Day is one day of the year, and yet it can mean a lot about what's really happening in the overall picture of your marriage. And that's really what we're about here at One Extraordinary Marriage, is impacting your marriage. Not one day of the year. We can sit on that day, but what is going to happen in your marriage this year? So you guys have yourselves a fantastic week. We're truly honored and blessed to have you part of the One family. Love you guys.